He is caught between a rock and a hard place at the moment with what he's trying to do. I think he's got to make a decision on how he wants to play, because the way they set up yesterday tactically was what lost them the game. They played a 4-3-3, very narrow in midfield, narrow up top, let the Arsenal fullbacks go and get free possession. And then he played two of the three midfielders who were attack-minded, Ndombele and Dele Alli. So he's got 5 attacking players on the pitch who, when you're playing away at Arsenal with their talent, 5 players who aren't particularly defensive-minded, you're going to leave yourself wide open. But tactically, they were all over the place. And it's fine starting out with a certain way of playing. But when it's not going well, the inability to change, it took him to half-time, was disastrous.
Well, it's interesting that you say that, because he admitted right from the off yesterday that he'd got it wrong.
When you have a game plan, you have to make the right decisions in terms of who you want to put on the pitch to develop that game plan. So I take responsibility because the decisions were not according to the game plan. So I'm not going to individual tell what decisions I didn't do right, but the game plan was not according to the players that were on the pitch.
You can be quite generous there and say he's taking all the blame, or you can say, is he actually saying that some of the individuals he put on the pitch weren't good enough yesterday?
Well, I think he's taking all the blame because I think he's trying to build a relationship with the dressing room and establish himself in a situation where the players trust him and feel that he's for them, rather than necessarily, like the previous guy, would perhaps throw them under the bus at the first opportunity. So there's an element of that going on. If you look at Spurs' results, look, the Arsenal-North London derby, in some respects, takes care of itself because of the nature of the fixture. You can understand getting battered by Chelsea because they're a far better side. The Palace result is the one that stands out amongst all of these results, besides the first 45 minutes against Arsenal, where they got it completely wrong and were miles off.
And Arsenal were very good.
Sure, but they were made to look better by how bad Tottenham were. And I don't want to take credit away from Arsenal, but I'm sure Arsenal's solution to their season is to play Tottenham every single week. If you want your fans to be that engaged, play Spurs every single week, because they'll let you take control of the game. The Palace game also has a slight element of excuse in it because they get a player sent off, but they were getting battered by Palace before that. If you look at the results going into those games, you can't say that Spurs weren't doing very well. They got a very stale and cold Man City in the first game of the season, and they beat them 1-0. They took care of the other games that were in front of them. Neither one of them were particularly compelling, and now you've got this pinch moment. I don't like headlines like that. I think that's crap journalism, because I don't think there's any danger of Daniel Levy looking down the barrel of his shotgun at Nuno in his sights right now, because you've got a work in progress. You've had 6 games, you've won 3, you've lost 3. Yes, you've got beat 3 by Chelsea, who are a far better side than you right now.
And they actually did all right in the first half against Chelsea.
And they did okay. And and then they got outmanoeuvred, outthought and outmanned in the second half. Yeah. And in this game, the exact opposite applied. They got outthought, outmanoeuvred and sometimes outmanned by Arsenal in the first half, and the balance was changed in the second half.
Is that squad good enough?
To do what exactly? I mean, look, the first game of the season, they beat Manchester City by playing on the counter. And they had really good defensive shit. They dropped off and let City have the ball, which was the right thing to do, and they nicked a win. Now, against Chelsea, they went toe for toe and tried to press them high up the pitch all over the place in the first half, but they ran out of steam, and as Simon rightly said, half-time, Tuchel tweaked it, changed it, and dominated the second half and won the game. Mm-hmm. Where he got caught right in between yesterday, because I think he's thinking, I don't want to be classed as this pragmatist like Mourinho, and I want to give the fans what they want, so he played 5 attacking players. The problem is, if you play a front 3 of Son, Kane and Moura, narrow, ready for the counter, and say stay high up the pitch, that's fine. If you've got 3 midfielders behind them who are athletic, defensive-minded and capable of doing the yards, because they were having to go from inside to outside to try and pick up the fullbacks. Liverpool have had success for many, many years playing this way, because he sacrifices an attacking player, Klopp, to play 3 midfielders who are tireless. When you think of Henderson, Fabinho, Wijnaldum or Milner, or Keita, those type of players, they can run and do the yards. Dele Alli and Ndombele are attack-minded players, luxuries in a way, both number 10s. And you're playing 2 number 10s in a midfield 3 with 3 attackers ahead of them. So this wasn't a pragmatic selection in personnel. It was just it was a tactical. It was so inadequate and the fact that I know why he did it, because they played that way against Man City, but they played deeper. What he didn't do was change it when it was going wrong, because everybody could see watching that game it was attack after attack after attack, and he didn't change it till half time, and in the second half they looked much better.
Fascinating though that he left his 2 new defensive signings on the bench from the start, which was slightly odd.
Well, you say that odd no, when you look at what happened against Man City. That was the same back 4 he played when they got the clean sheet against Man City.
Yeah,
because Tanganga stays in. He's got the 3 attacking players, the 2 in midfield. He's thinking fullback who stays at home, not the Emerson Royal, the lad who flies forward. We'll play Tanganga, who did well against Man City. So in his head, he's thinking, we'll go back to what we did against Man City. We'll stop conceding. So I understood why he did it. I'm with you. If you're bringing in new players and spending a lot of money, you got to get them integrated at some point. Maybe he thought the North London derby wasn't the game to do it. But the reason he played that back four was because that was the back four that shut out Man City. So I understood why he set up the way he did. But when it was going so badly wrong, and you're right, Arsenal played some terrific football, by the way. Emile Smith-Rowe, Odegaard and Saka caused them untold problems by their little bit of intelligent movement in those pockets. But ultimately, the lack of action during that first half, we've seen it many times with the top managers, and Simon alluded rightly to Tuchel's decision at half-time when it was 0-0. He could have left it against Tottenham. But everybody could see that needed to change quickly, and he left it.
Yeah, waited too long. Is Daniel Levy to blame a little bit here for leaving Nuno Espirito Santo without necessarily the squad that he should have?
Yeah, I mean, Espirito Santo will have had a window and some time to make certain decisions and assess the squad that he's got. I think you look at the way that he's performed in the last 3 games, take the Palace game out of the equation and say, OK, Arsenal game takes care of itself. They got it wrong in the first half, they got it better in the second half, but the game was away from them. You look at the Chelsea game and say, well, you put that down to Chelsea being a better side. Now, you look at the next 2 games they've got, put aside the Europa League, you look at Aston Villa and you look at Newcastle, and if you come out of those games looking poor.
Aston Villa are a good side. They've got a big game.
But they are not. They are where Tottenham. If you're competing in this league right now, reality, Aston Villa are a side that you'd expect to be there and thereabout around you. Newcastle, with all the problems that Steve Bruce has got and all the issues that Newcastle have got, if you don't start to get points and look impressive in these 2 games, and you're right, Villa are a very good side, but Tottenham would expect themselves to beat the Villas of the world, irrespective of how Villa are doing, and they certainly would expect to beat Newcastle. Now, if you get those 2 games, and still he doesn't know whether he's Arthur or Martha, then you're going to start to see some momentum building against him.
When does Daniel Levy sit there and think, actually, I should have cashed in on Harry Kane, I should have taken the 125 million, I should have reinvested in what I've got? This is a guy who only yesterday had the fewest number of touches of anyone who played 90 minutes in that game. Yeah. It's his longest Premier League goal drought since 2016. He's averaged 1.25 shots per 90 minutes in the Premier League this season, which places him near the bottom of the 45 forwards that have played at least 50 minutes in the Premier League this season. I mean, that is a worry, isn't it?
I watched the sort of the outlaying of all the statistics where Tottenham are bottom of the league for most yards, Tottenham are bottom of the league for this, that and the other. So it's no surprise if your top player at the top end of the pitch, if your team isn't running and working hard as it could be and isn't good in possession, then ultimately you're not going to see your best player get on the ball. The answer to the question is, at which particular point was there a better opportunity for them to have spent that money somewhere else than Harry Kane? And clearly, for whatever reason, Daniel had in his mind a certain figure, or absolutely no figure whatsoever, it just wasn't for sale, that Man City weren't going to get what they wanted out of this equation, which was Harry Kane. Harry Kane, for me, I'll ask Danny, as a player, do you believe he's got a petted lip? Do you believe what's being said? Because there's a narrative being spun out last week by Jim and Martin Keown that he's sulking, that he was on his game. And I'm saying, well, hang on a second. You've compared him to Lukaku. Lukaku's playing in a side that are in ascendancy. Yeah. So that's a bad comparison. But what do you think of Harry Kane?
I don't think he's sulking, no.
No. Okay.
Never starts the season well. Never scores in August.
September. Yeah, exactly. Or September. But the next time he plays is October.
Well, that's when he gets going.
Well, that is what it is, isn't it?
Well, so you think
if you're laying all the blame at Tottenham's woes on Harry Kane, then you're misguided.
No, I don't think that's the situation. Anybody. But I think I suppose one of the questions will be, if this situation continues, if you look at the quality of the squad. I think we all look at the Tottenham squad and think it could be better, right?
He could have had a hat-trick yesterday, by the way.
Yeah, but he didn't.
I know, but he's getting in there. He'll score goals. He'll be backfiring scoring goals. It's not a problem. The Tottenham have got bigger problems than waiting for Harry Kane to score goals.
Jim White and Simon Jordan, Monday to Thursday morning, 10 till 1. On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.